The forest waits gray dawn frost on every branch. Soldiers' boots crunch on frozen ground, rifles slung. Pine and gun oil scent the cold air. Miller, the leader, inspects them. Posture gear alertness, a palpable stretching silence. Discipline is tangible here. Ortega nervously adjusts his helmet eyes, scanning the tree line. His visible breath a reminder of the harsh environment. Kowalski mutters, fingers tightening on his rifle. Miller's subtle hand gesture signals focus calm. Training drills rerun long marches, rapid target acquisition, metal on snow. Competence is known, limits are acknowledged. A whistle blows. Men break into squads, moving tactically across the uneven terrain, each step deliberate. Davis scribbles notes in his journal positions and risks. His hand shakes slightly, not from cold, but from anticipation. The canopy muffles all sound in eerie stillness. Even the wind seems hesitant among the trees. Miller signals hand commands. The platoon shifts positions, textbook precision, muscle memory guiding them. They are trained,
they faced Germans
ordered,
in the snow,
prepared,
but something else
but the forest
waiting.
remains untamed, unpredictable, and indifferent. Shovels bite frozen earth. Men dig foxhole snow clinging to their coats. Steel scraping stone punctuates silence. Davis exchanges glances with Ortega, a silent acknowledgement of fragile trust and shared responsibility. Radio static crackles, reminding them of communication lines and isolation, a tense, fleeting reprieve. They huddle near a small fire steam rising from their kits. Warmth is fleeting. Conversation is minimal whispers. Ortega's eyes trace the horizon, noting shadows, a natural vigilance deeply drilled into him. Kowalski checks his rifle bolt and trigger. His numb fingers are precise. A satisfied nod confirms readiness. A quiet joke breaks the tension. Christmas at home. Brief, genuine smiles, a humanizing moment. They are not faceless units. They are men carrying histories, memories, fears, and duty. Distant artillery echoes miles away. The larger battle rages. Here in this small forest, silence reigns. The forest's emptiness feels heavier than the guns. Frost-laden branches hang like sentinels. Miller reviews the mission map. Lines of ink trace patrols and objectives. Planning meets uncertain terrain. He marks the frozen map's pencil scraping over paper. A thread connecting men to orders, to purpose. Ortega hesitates by the fire. Will reinforcements arrive? Concern mingles with his resolve. Soldiers adjust positions, creating overlapping arcs of vigilance. A living network of protection. Guards step silently into post, rifles ready, eyes flicking between shadow and snow. The weight of expectation presses on their shoulders. The forest closes in. Miller paces briefly, scanning the perimeter. His gaze is sharp, calculated. The men follow his lead. Discipline is the only shield against chaos. The mental armor each soldier relies on. The wind whispers through the trees, carrying unseen noises. Every snapped twig magnified. A small flurry of snow falls, dusting helmets. Frost glints in the firelight, brief beauty against hardship. They check their gear again. Magazines, full boots laced. Every detail matters when the margin is thin. Davis writes observations, temperature, wind notes. Margins filled with questions hint at anxiety. Brief glances exchange silent communication. Reaffirming trust, knowing comrades' capabilities and limits. Slowly they settle, unease lingers. Snow crunches under cautious steps. Silence is tense. They are trained soldiers bound by loyalty and duty, aware of danger but not ready for what waits. The first night watch brings unease. The forest speaks in strange tones beyond the simple wind. Collins freezes. A long, mournful howl carries across the snowbound trees. It sounds like a wolf. Men murmur it's a wolf, yet none recall wolves this far south in the Ardennes. Ortega kneels at dawn, examining footprints half buried in the frost. Too long, too deep. The tracks are neither man nor animal in any familiar, comfortable form. Harris orders double sentries. Discipline masks the tremor in his voice. The platoon radio sputters garbled whispers. Radio static drowns the room, a torrent of white noise as the SCR-300 sputters to life with bursts of garbled alien whispers. The operator swears he hears German, but the words are broken, alien, and warped with static. A private laughs nervously, calling it a trick of the storm. His eyes betray pure fear. Miller keeps the Browning close, muttering that steel answers questions better than guesses. Night falls again. The silence presses heavier than any artillery fire ever could. The men jump when a barn door slams, but there is no wind at all. Collins admits he cannot sleep, writing handshaking about shadows moving in the snow. Ortega reports no enemy patrols, no sign of the Wehrmacht advance in their sector. Harris wonders if the Germans are absent, then what circles them in this deep, cold dark. A soldier swears he saw pale yellow eyes reflecting deep between the trees. His comrades mock him, yet no one volunteers to relieve him at his lonely post. Snow falls harder, covering their defenses, muffling every sound but the soft crunch of boots. In the farmhouse cellar, Harris quietly tells Miller to be ready for absolutely anything. A scream shatters the night, a sentry's cry cut off just before it can finish. The platoon rushes out, rifles raised. They find nothing but dark blood on the pristine snow. The man's helmet lies overturned, no bullet hole. Unclear claw marks tear at the leather. Harris orders calm, but the men see his hand tighten and whiten around his pistol. Back at the radio, static shifts to a faint chorus like a chant without any language. The operator yanks off his headset, face pale. He refuses to put it back on ever again. Miller snarls, it's just nerves, but even his own eyes drift to the pressing shadows. The second sentry refuses his post-breaking discipline. Harris almost draws his sidearm. Fear gnaws at the platoon discipline stretched thin as frost on glass. The men begin to whisper rumors, each one darker than the last, carried on smoke. One speaks of German experiments, another of ancient hunters who never died. Collins writes that he feels watched even when indoors, eyes on him through timber walls. Ortega admits quietly to Harris, whatever is out there, Lieutenant, it is hunting, not marching. The lieutenant files no report. What words could describe a threat that remains unseen? The night ends with no further attack, only a silence that is too deep, too deliberate. By dawn, 31 men remain. Their eyes are hollow, their rifles always within reach. The morning brings no relief. The platoon finds a sentry's rifle buried in snow without its owner. Blood trails vanish into the tree line as if the forest simply swallowed the man whole. Ortega reports broken branches high above ground, far too high for a man to reach alone. Harris insists on discipline, but his voice falters as men glance nervously at the shadows. Miller mounts the Browning on a window ledge, its barrel aimed straight toward the trees. A patrol ventures out, crunching snow under boots, each step swallowed by an eerie silence. They find a torn field jacket caught in branches, stiff with frozen dark blood. Collins whispers into his notebook, "We fight something the manuals never prepared us for." At dusk, the radio spits bursts of distorted howls like voices carried on static. The operator abandons the set, refusing to listen to those terrible sounds any longer. The men eat in silence, every sound amplified, cans opening spoons, scraping teeth, grinding. Harris walks the perimeter, his pistol drawn, though no enemy is clearly visible. Ortega halts, suddenly pointing to prints in the snow, long bipedal and terribly clawed. Miller curses, chambering, around his eyes fixed on the tree line in the falling light. A hulking figure moves between trees, too fast, too large, and vanishes before fire is ordered. The patrol fires blindly, muzzle flashes lighting the forest, but nothing falls to the ground. Night descends with a blizzard, snow whipping into faces, obscuring all sight and sound. Screams erupt from the darkness as two men vanish, dragged beyond the fire's light. Harris shouts orders, but the line collapses into chaos. Men fire wildly in all directions. The Browning roars tracers, cutting through the snow, illuminating shapes too tall to be human. Collins swears he sees yellow eyes reflecting in the storm before they vanish completely. Ortega drags a wounded soldier back inside, blood soaking the snow behind him. Harris demands a head count, 27 men left, fear etched onto every pale face. The farmhouse walls shake as something heavy slams against them from outside. Windows rattle glass, cracking, but no clear target appears in sight of their guns. Men shout, stacking furniture against the doors. Bayonets fixed, rifles trembling in their hands. The roof creaks ominously as if something enormous has just climbed above them. Snow sifts down through cracks, landing on helmets as soldiers brace for the worst impact. Then silence, too sudden, too deliberate, falls upon the farmhouse, heavier than death. Harris whispers, "Hold steady." Even he no longer believes the order will hold them. A shadow passes by a shattered window, hulking upright, gone in a simple beat. Miller fires, shattering the frame, but nothing lies beyond but the endless snow. Collins prays under his breath, his notebook abandoned in a far corner. Another soldier collapses in panic, begging to retreat into the blinding storm. Harris strikes him across the face, forcing a terrible silence back into the room. Hours drag by, each minute stretched into an eternity by overwhelming dread. Men nod off, only to jolt awake at the faint, chilling sound of claws on wood. Ortega reports something is circling them, never closing in, toying with them like wolves. The platoon is completely trapped, unable to advance, unable to retreat. There is no way out. Harris orders an evacuation at first light, knowing staying means certain final death. Snow falls heavier, burying tracks, concealing their enemy, erasing every sign of escape. In the distance, a single howl rises, joined by others, until it becomes a cruel chorus. The sound is not of animals, but of something ancient, cruel, and mocking them. Men clutch their rifles tighter, knowing dawn will bring no salvation to this place. As the night ends, 27 of the soldiers remain alive, but none believe they will see home again. Dawn breaks under a full blizzard, visibility reduced to mere meters. Harris gives the order, evacuate through the forest, a staggered formation for cover. Men move in silence, rifles raise their boots, sinking deep into the snow. Ortega leads point, scanning the tree line with a frantic, careful
God,
gaze.
Please.
Behind him, Collins clutches his notebook, too frightened to write another word. A mournful howl erupts ahead, answered instantly by another on the platoon's flank. The platoon halts, eyes darting, their discipline trembling on the edge of collapse. Miller swings the Browning on his tripod, muttering, "Come on, come and try us." Then shapes emerge from the whiteout, tall, broad, moving with inhuman speed. The Browning opens fire tracers, slicing through the storm, striking one shape squarely. The figure falls. But when they approach, only churned snow remains on the ground. Panic spreads as more shadows encircle them, their eyes glowing in the whiteout. Rifles crack, muzzle flashes bloom, yet no bodies lie in the swirling snowdrifts. A soldier is seized midline, dragged screaming into the storm, a sound swallowed by the wind. Harris shouts for cohesion, but gunfire scatters wildly into the trees. Ortega throws a grenade, the explosion muffled in snow. The echoes fade to silence. For a moment, nothing stirs. Then another howl cuts through the smoke. The formation breaks. Men sprint, blindly disciplined, collapsing into pure survival instinct. Collins falls scrambling in the snow, rescued at the last second by Ortega. Miller drags the heavy Browning on its sled, firing short, desperate bursts at the shifting shapes. Harris orders a fallback to a nearby ridgeline, trying to regroup the few survivors. Shadows follow them, darting between trees, never fully seen, yet always present. One soldier empties his Garand, then screams as something tears him away mid-reload. A crimson spray stains the snow. The man is gone before a name can be shouted. Harris forces his men to keep moving, his voice now hoarse from sheer command. The storm worsens. Wind howls like inhuman voices, the snow blinding every eye. Ortega points toward the ridge, only to freeze as a hulking figure blocks their path. The platoon fires as one bullet's ripping through the terrible blizzard. The figure staggers, then simply vanishes into the drifting snow without a trace. Miller curses, slamming the Browning's feed tray, shouting, "They don't die." Harris orders a bayonet charge, the last resort of soldiers against phantoms. Men rush forward, their steel-fixed bayonets slashing blindly at the shadows. Screams fill the storm, human and inhuman, completely indistinguishable in the chaos. Another explosion, grenades tossed blindly. Trees shatter, but the shapes keep moving. Collins writes one last line before his pencil snaps. "They hunt us like wolves." A soldier collapses, his throat ripped open. His rifle falls into crimson snow. Harris sees another man dragged into the dark, his screams cut brutally short. The ridge offers no safety, only more howls echoing from all sides. The survivors form a shrinking circle, rifles emptying into the storm, eyes wide with terror. As the blizzard consumes them, the platoon realizes they are no longer soldiers in a battle, but simply prey in a hunt older than war itself. The storm eases by dawn, revealing a battlefield without bodies, only blood in the clean snow. Harris gathers the remnants, less than half the platoon still breathing. Their eyes are hollowed out. Rifles are clutched like lifelines. The men's discipline is shattered, a thing of the past. Collins sits against a tree, notebook in trembling hands, pages stained a deep red. Ortega limps on a bandaged leg, whispering hoarsely, "They toyed with us. They toyed with us." Miller curses under his breath, reloading his rifle, though no enemy is clearly visible. Harris calls for order, but his voice cracks, dissolving into a helpless silence. A quick head count confirms 17 survivors, with 15 men lost in the long night. Helmets and rifles lie scattered, mute, terrible graves beneath the still falling snow. The heavy Browning is abandoned, its barrel warped, every round of ammunition spent. Harris orders movement, though none truly believe rescue awaits them anymore. The men stumble forward, their exhaustion is deeper than any physical wound could ever be. Collins writes a final line, "We fought shadows, not soldiers." Ortega surveys the tree line, absolutely certain that the hunt is not finished at all. A survivor mutters prayers, each desperate word swallowed by the cold wind. Harris marks new coordinates in his map, though no position holds meaning anymore. The platoon passes ruined foxholes, stark reminders of their futile, helpless defenses. The silence grows heavier than any battle. Each step echoes with a profound sense of loss. Miller breaks the quiet, his voice ragged. "We should have died last night." Harris cannot answer. His hand simply trembles on the cold pistol grip. Snow buries all traces of the fallen, erasing any evidence of the night's slaughter. Collins tears a single page from his notebook, shoving it into his coat pocket.
But it is too risky to move.
Ortega glances back, swearing he can see hulking figures pacing at a distance. The survivors press on, hollowed out, knowing the relentless pursuit continues on. Harris stops them briefly, stating flatly, "No one writes this in the final report." A soldier begins to cry softly, his quiet voice the only sound in the stillness. The men resume the march, shadows of soldiers rather than a fighting unit. Each rifle hangs heavy, each step is slower, discipline reduced to survival instinct. As night approaches again, the survivors realize they are not retreating, but simply waiting to be finished. The cold Ardennes forest swallows their footsteps, leaving behind only dread and silence. A week later, a relief column advanced cautiously into the frozen village,
Fall back to the
their
ridge.
boots crunching on the quiet snow. The farmhouse stood silent, its doors broken off their hinges, every window crusted over with thick ice. Inside, they found only abandoned year-old rifles leaning uselessly against cracked timber walls. No bodies lay within the wreckage, only strange stains of blood darkened into the cold floorboards. The heavy Browning machine gun sat rusted in place, its tripod knocked grotesquely askew by some unseen force. Snow had drifted through the ruined roof, covering what remained of their belongings like a burial shroud. The search party fanned out, calling out names into the silence, but no reply ever came back. Along the tree line, they discovered only shredded uniforms with no personal dog tags attached to them. A helmet lay half buried in a drift, its liner torn out, long claw marks etched across the scarred steel. Collins's notebook was recovered, its pages soaked through with blood, the words fading into illegibility. One final haunting page simply read, "Not Germans, not men, they hunt." Ortega's field knife was found driven deep into a stump, as if in a final desperate act of fear. Reports filed officially noted, "Enemy presence undetermined," and unit presumed completely destroyed. Official records attributed the losses to sheer confusion during a larger German offensive. But whispers among the soldiers spread an entire American platoon had been erased without a trace. Local villagers refused to enter the dark forest, crossing themselves and praying at its very mention. They called it Hullenwald, the Forest of Hell, a place far older than any human nation. One old elder muttered softly to himself, "Some hunters are older than all nations." U.S. officers dismissed such claims, but none of them volunteered for night patrols anymore. Rumors circulated of strange howls carried on the wind sounds, too human to be just wolves. Men on later watches claimed to see pale yellow eyes reflecting between the deep dark trees. A relief patrol vanished weeks later with no shots fired, no signals sent out from them. Command erased any mention of the anomalies, stamping all the reports classified without explanation. Surviving paperwork listed Harris's platoon simply as missing in action in the final report. In reality, 32 brave men marched into the Ardennes and simply never came back out. Silence became their only grave marker. The deep, eternal snow was their sole monument. Their families received letters of condolence, but the terrible truth was never told. Yet in the woods, strange tracks reappeared after every new snowfall, too large, too long. At night, the cold wind carries howls that linger like a terrible memory of slaughter. The Ardennes keeps its grim secret, a battlefield where war and nightmare became one. December 1944. The Ardennes forest snowbound, silent, and soon to become a frozen, unmarked grave. 32 men of the 106th Infantry Division marched deep into a deserted, hollowed-out village. Their orders were clear: hold the line against the formidable German advance at all costs. They expected the Wehrmacht. They were utterly unprepared for what truly waited in the trees. The first night, strange howls carried across the frozen woods, too long, too terribly human. By dawn, a sentry was gone, his rifle buried deep within the crimson-stained snow. The platoon fought shadows, firing blindly into a storm that swallowed every bullet. Reports found later mentioned no Germans, only a pair of malevolent eyes glowing in the dark. Official records declared the entire unit missing in action, a quiet final statement. But the forest kept its own grim record, blood silence, and howls that never ever ended.